Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Ex Libris. In this episode we're going to discuss a couple of books and show you my latest book haul, and I'm going to share with you my new endeavor. So let's start with our first book for today, which is it was an ebook. It was read during the Read an ebook week from 4 to 10 March this year, and it was the second installment of the Wayfarers trilogy or tetralogy, I'm not sure about that, and it is called A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. The first book was a great success among sci-fi fans, and I have already read it and talked about it in a previous Ex Libris, and it was a sci-fi book that I loved very much. The second book, of course, it's again a science fiction book, but there was a little bit of a disappointment at the beginning because we realized that it was not the same heroes of the first book. We don't follow their story arc in this book. We get off to another story arc, but this little disappointment was only the beginning, because Becky Chambers has managed to deliver a gripping and very interesting story. And as usual with her books, there are seriously funny moments, or should I say funny and serious. Well, she manages to write about very serious issues in a fun and interesting way. The book doesn't try to impose the author's views or teach us. It simply through everyday, let's say, experiences in life, it manages to pose very serious questions questions of moral nature, I'd say, first and foremost, but also we can see in her in the book's heroes and situations, we can easily see our society and ourselves. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to read. It has an interesting and nice plot, and but it's really good and easy to read. But what I loved most about the book is that it makes you think. It makes you think about yourself, about our society, about what we take for granted. As the first book was all about diversity, and this book is, I'd say, more about choice and rights, human rights, I'd say, and how technology evolves, and what this means to us as humans. Anyway, I totally recommend it of course, to every science fiction fan out there, but also to people that like to think, that want material to think about, and in a funny way, I'd say. I've read it in electronic form, of course, and it's fairly priced, I'd say. That's all. Next book, October, The Story of Russian Revolution by China Mieville. And in this book, it's a history, as I've said before. It is very nice to read history books that read like fiction, and this is the case, or almost the case, with this book. It is the story of the Russian Revolution that led to the what we came later known as the USSR. But this book is not about the history of communism or a concise history of Russia, of communist Russia. It's the story of the revolution itself, a story that is often omitted or has become less known because of the events that followed the revolution. This book focuses in Petrograd, and as it was called then, the then capital of the Russian Empire. Now they call it again St. Petersburg, but it's the same city. That's this very important city in Russian history, and it deals with the events that took place between February and October 1917. It was this period that was, I'd say, crucial to Russian history. It is the period where the Russian Revolution was formed, began, took form and evolved, and it ended, this period ended with the proclamation of the, let's say, of the Bolshevik party of taking over power, which was the beginning of the communist regime in Russia, which is another story, of course, and Mieville is not going into that. It is the I love this book because the events are not very well known, and they were quite chaotic. And in this book, of course, there are the heroes, the protagonists, but the main protagonist is the city itself and its people, and it was nice to have this perspective. The author has a disclaimer. Let's say that he writes he has his goodies and baddies, and he personally is what would say leftist, which would mean that he more or less sympathizes more with the communists than the others. But I can say that the author is fair and objective. He does not make his baddies grotesque or bad, or he does not exemplify the, let's say, good ones. No, I think he gives a fair picture of everyone involved, of the main heroes, of the main protagonists, and he's quite accurate at describing the various events that took place in quite an objective way, I'd say. And it's quite difficult to do that with history books, but I think he manages it quite nicely, and he doesn't hesitate to pinpoint everyone's mistakes and weaknesses. And of course, he says some very important things about how and why things where things went from there after the revolution. And I think it's a very it's a very nice book, and if you're interested into history and political history, you should read it. It's not a book about politics. It doesn't delve too deep into the various political ideas and ideologies and stuff like that. No, it's very friendly to the average reader. You get the picture, you can see what everyone was hoping for, what their motives are, but you are not get very let's say troubled by the finer details of ideologies and politics and stuff like that. So it reads quite easily, and it approaches a fiction, a novel, I'd say. So I recommend it to everyone who loves history, and especially political history. So, and now let me show you my latest book haul, and these are two books I wanted for some time, and I was able to get them. The first one is, of course, by Anthony Beevor, one of my favorite historians out there. It's the Second World War. I always wanted to have this in my collection. I will read it, of course, and you're going to know about it. And the other one that has recently come come to my attention, and I decided I wanted to read it because I'm also a fan of ancient history. It's SPQR by Mary Beard, A History of Ancient Rome, and I have a keen interest in Roman history as well, so this book came highly recommended to me, and since I got a nice price at the book depository, I got it, and of course I'm going to read it and let you know if it's worth your time and effort. Let's say it's not that big, it's 500 to 600 pages compared to Beaver's book of about 900 pages, but it's okay. I don't fret. I'm not feel overwhelmed by long books, especially if they're in subjects that are of interest to me. And last but not least, I'd like to ask you a question. Recently, my internet connection got upgraded, so I can now do lives in my YouTube channel. So I would like you to let me know in the comments by voting or just sending me a message if you would be interested in a series of live YouTube lives where we will discuss various issues that I wouldn't like to just talk about them here. It's quite it's nice being able to make a podcast or a vidcast, but what I love is discussing things and answering to questions by friends, by fellow bookstagrammers or YouTubers, booktubers, let's say, or various readers. So YouTube Live is a platform that allows you to do that. You can chat with the speaker, and I would like to know if you would be interested in doing a series of lives in English, of course. So please feel free to let me know your opinion about that. So thank you for watching. That's all for now. See you in the next episode.